This conference will now be recorded.
All right, great. Any questions from yesterday's sessions, guys? Any questions so far? Anyone, anything so far?
Sir,
Any questions? Anything?
sir, Madhu
Go ahead,
here.
please. Go ahead, please.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Good morning, sir. Sir, actually, in yesterday's sessions, we have discussed about that. Sorry, you have given one assignment, right? I need to talk
Mm-hmm.
about that.
Correct.
So, actually, you have created two users and two user groups. User group one is developer for one is for tester, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, if you check from the user end, that means if you check the IAM for the from the user end, is showing that. um, he can able to access both the resources whatever the resource under that particular subscription, right?
Correct.
If you want to access the particular user for a particular resource group,
Mm-hmm.
so we have to do the IAM from IAM instead of subscription level. We can do this we can do the IAM for at resource group level, then only we can able
Correct.
to, right?
Correct. That's correct. That's correct. That's something that I'll discuss. Yes, that's correct. You're right. Instead of doing an IAM from the subscription level, you can do an IAM from the resource group level.
Research
But
group level.
before, correct, at the resource group level. So whichever resource group you do the IAM at, the users is going to or the user is going to get access to only that particular resource group as such.
Instead of
Again,
accessing all the users under that subscription, like whatever it
under the
might be handled,
subscription.
we
Correct.
can actually able to access only the particular research group.
That's correct.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Any other questions there, guys? So we'll recap. So we have a tenant now. Tenant is nothing but again a space in the Azure portal. Whenever you go ahead create an Outlook account, you get a tenant ID out here. And if you want to look at the tenant ID, you go into the Active Directory, go into something known as tenant ID, and you find your own tenant ID out here as such. After that, we went and created a subscription, and under the subscription right now we are talking about resource groups, two different resource groups which act like a folder under your subscription out here. And this is the smallest resource that you can create on the Azure portal, and this is what you need to begin your journey with. This is the smallest resource yet an important resource out here. So let's go ahead and check this out. So under the one subscription, I have two different resource groups out here, and this is where user management comes into picture. Yesterday we added two users, user 1 and user 2. I'll say u1 and u2 out here to make things a little simple, which is user 1, and then you have a user 2 out here as such. These are the two users that you do have, and my requirement is that user 1, who is a developer, should only have access to this particular resource group called developer RG. Exactly. User 2, who is a tester, should only have access to this particular RG called as a testing RG. So I now want to do specific IAM to the users out here. So firstly, what I did is that I added users. So today again, I do not have the users. I deleted them. So I'll go back and into users. I'll say new user. I'll say create a user. I'll say this is a user. I'll say this is user 1. I'll say the name of the user is user 1. Again, first name, last name, I don't really have to give here. I'll say let me generate or let me create the own password. I'll go ahead and give the password out here. Let me go here and say the job title is a developer. So I'm giving them a developer and I'm saying create. This is user 1. I'll also go ahead and do user 2. So I'll say create user 2. Instead of again creating, you can also invite the particular user out here. You can also do a user invitation out here as well. So I'm saying user 2, and let's go scroll down. and I'll say Microsoft-001. I'll just scroll down. I'll say the job title here is a. Let's create this out. So now I have two different users that I created, user one and user two. In order to log in like user one, I'll just go ahead and say go to user one profile out here. I'll copy the email ID of that particular user. Again, whenever you create a user, two things that you get created. One is the user principal name or the email ID of the user in very short. Two, the object ID of that particular user. Each and every user will have an object ID associated with himself. This is how Azure Active Directory identifies that your user one, your user two, three, four, so on and so forth. So I'll say great, no problem. I'll copy this out. And very firstly, either I can go, if I go, the point here is that if I go into identity and access management under the subscription level, very importantly, this is subscription. I clicked on the subscription, so I came here. You can say subscriptions, and under the subscription, if I go ahead, do something called as identity and access management, wherein I can do some kind of a role assignment for a particular user. And if I end up giving a contributor access at the subscription level for someone called user one, what I'm doing is I'm giving this user a role called contributor for my subscription. So the user is a contributor here. If a user is a contributor here, the same permission gets inherited at individual resource groups levels as well. Meaning whichever resource groups are there under this particular subscription, all those resource groups will consider this user to be as a contributor only. Meaning this is now called inheritance. So the rule that is applied at the parent level will scroll down, will come down, and the rule basically that you, let's say, or the role that you basically assign at this particular level will be inherited at the child resource levels as well, parent and a child relationship as such out here. So let me go back and I'll say, and so this is done. The contribution addition is done, which is user one is being added as a contributor. So if I now log in like the user one, so I'll just copy the email ID of the user. I'll go into a different tab. I'll say portal.azure.com is this user ID in, and give the initial password and change the password. Okay. So I'll try giving the initial password, change this password out here, and then go ahead and let's say log into it. Maybe later. And now if I go into something known as resource groups, I'm now be I'll now be able to see both the developer and the tester resource group. Reason being, if I go like this user, look at the subscription, same subscription again. So I'm under the same subscription, same ID. If I say access control and say view my access, I am now a contributor to this resource. When it says this resource, nothing but the subscription out here. So I'll say great, no problem. If I come down into resource groups, if I click on an individual resource group out here, and if I go into access control here as well, each and every resource in Azure has this blade called access control. If I go here and if I click on view my access, I'm a contributor, but I am a contributor at a subscription level, and this particular contribution permissions or this particular contributor permissions have been inherited from that particular subscription. But this is something that I wanted to avoid. I didn't want user 1 to have access on the entire subscription. I only wanted user 1 to have access to that particular developer RG and user 2 to have access on the testing RG out here. So what I'll do, the next attempt, this is again my account /devops@gmail.com, which is the administrator account. This time around, I am not going into the subscriptions. I'll go inside the resource groups. There are two resource groups out here, developer and tester. I'll go inside the tester resource group. And inside the tester resource group, I see something known as identity and access management. I'll go here. And this is where I'll do a role assignment. So I'll say role assignment and I'll say contributor. And I want user 2 to have a contribution access only to tester 2 resource group. So I'll say yes, select members, and I'll say user 2, and I'll say review and assign out here. So now user 2 is being granted an access called contributor, but this time around he was not granted access at the subscription level. He was granted access at the resource group level, which means this user is not added here. This user is added here. So he will only have access to this resource groups or to this particular resource group and the resources under this particular resource group. Like tomorrow, this is an empty resource group right now. Like in the coming classes, you would like to add multiple resources under it. Every resource that you add under this particular resource group, this user will now start having a contributor access on all those resource groups out or all those resources out here, because all these resources will now act like a child for this particular resource group out here as such. So let me go there like user 2 and let me try to sign in like user 2 out here. So this is user 1. I will sign in with a different account. I'll just take out user 1 with user 2, replace this with the 2. I'll say next. I'll give the password that I do have. I'll give the credentials out here, the initial setup, and now I am logged in like user 2 out here. This is user 2 that I've logged in. Again, very importantly, user 2 has access only to the subscription, sorry, only to the resource group, not the subscription. So if I click on subscriptions, should the user 2 be able to see the subscription? Let's see that. Able to see the subscription. The user 2 will still be able to see the subscription, because if he's not able to see the subscription, how he will be able to see the resource group? He will be able to see the subscription, but he doesn't have access on the subscription, meaning he cannot go into the subscription, make any changes. No, he doesn't have the access out there. But if I go into the resource group level, this is what user 2 will see. Only the tester resource group. I, as an administrator, am still able to see all the resource groups under my Azure portal. I'm able to see developer, I'm able to see something else. If I add something, I'll even be able to see that. But this user will not be able to see that particular, let's say, resource group, or will not be able to see the first resource group out here. Reason being, he's a contributor. So if I go here into identity and access management, say view my access, he's a contributor for this resource only, which is the resource group. If he goes into the subscription and checks out identity and access management, says view my access, you see it says you do not have permission to read this one, and you do not have any permissions out here. Also, if I go into overview, do you see this? Unauthorized or insufficient privilege to see the billing details and etc. I won't be even able to see what is the billing and all that stuff. But user one, who's this guy, who is a contributor at the subscription level, he will be able to see those billing details and all these things out. So now he's not getting that particular banner telling unauthorized, insufficient privileges, and etc. And here, if you see this, it's now telling you what is the cost per resource and all that stuff, which will take some time to load. And he will be able to see all these costs and etc. Reason being, he has some access on your subscription level. He doesn't have access now. If you see, you have all these cost details and etc. So he's able to see all these cost details, what are the costs and all that stuff that incurred. But user 2 doesn't or will not be able to see that. Reason being, user 2 doesn't have access at all. Reason being, user 1 is added here, user 2 is added here. Yes, getting this? Any questions still here? Anyone, any questions still here? Now, what if I want to redo the assignment? Because now accidentally I have given user 1 access to, let's say, subscription to show you all how it looks like. I don't want this user to have access to subscription. I want this user to only have access on the resource group level as such. What I can do is firstly log in as the administrator, because this is the privilege that I have, owner as such. I can go ahead and add accesses, remove accesses and all that stuff. I'll go into my subscription. This is where the user has been given a role. So if I go into, let's say, identity and access management, I'll say role assignments, who's all got the role and etc. I'll just search for user one. User one is contributor at this particular resource. I click on the user. I'll say firstly, remove this user from the subscription. I'll say yes, I want to remove this user one from the subscription as a contributor. I don't want this user to be a contributor on the subscription. Remove him. Go into the resource groups. Even you can go into resource groups from the settings out here. Developer and into access control, and then do a role assignment here as a contributor. Say next, select members. I'll say user one, select, I'll say review and assign here. So now I am redoing the rules. So firstly, I'm denying the assignment where the user is not supposed to have the role out there. And once I do that, the role has been reassigned to the user. Now let's log in back as user one. Now user one is still able to see this. Again, it'll take like about 5 or 6 minutes of time to get reflected and all these things out. Now do you see insufficient privileges? Now you are getting the same thing for user one as well, because user one role has been redone. Resource groups, again it's saying error occurred and all that stuff. It'll take like about 5 minutes of time for this user to actually see what access he has. So once you do the role assignment, it should take about 5 to 6 minutes, and sometimes you will have to refresh your screen a couple of times or log out and re-log in back in order to get the right access out here as such. So let me refresh this out. It's now the browser cache which is coming into picture. Sometimes you'll have to, let's say, go ahead and re-log in back again. Now you're able to see, or the user one is still able to see the tester resource group. But in some time from now, if I just do a refresh again, it's giving all these details out here. This is the access that I have, which is the developer resource hyphen group. This is the only resource group I as user one will be able to see, because I am only added at this particular group. I do not have access on the subscription, but yes, I'll be able to see the subscription. Reason being, if I want to see the child, I also need to have, let's say, at least a read access on the subscription out here as such. Yes, so this was the assignment that was redone. User one is here with a contributor access. User two is here on resource group 2 with a contributor access out here. Both of them have a contributor access. So contributor at resource group 1, contributor at resource group 2. Yes, any questions still here? I'm sorry, can you please come again, please? Can you add one user in two different resource groups? Yes, you can add one user in any resource groups as such, any number of resource groups as such. Yes, any more questions here? Anyone? Any more questions here?
Hi Suresh, good morning.
Good, please.
I have a small doubt here. As you said
Mm-hmm,
that developer and testing we have two resource group, right?
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
when we have added testing into the resource group two,
Okay.
is it necessary to add the developer in subscription first and tester in resource group two? In that way, suppose we have a multiple resource group,
Okay.
like 3 or 4. Then
Mm-hmm.
which one to add into the subscription first, and then which one to add into the resource group? But directly, all the user directly we can add into the subscription. Sorry, resource group
Resource groups.
rather
Mm-hmm.
than adding to the subscription.
Correct. You can do that
But how they'll able to view the access of the subscription or read? Like as I
because when you're
understand.
adding to a child, when you're adding to a child resource, which is a resource group out here,
Mhm.
you will explicitly, or sorry, you will implicitly get a read access on your subscription. That's how Azure really behaves. You do not really have to add them into the subscription out there. If you are adding them into
Mhm.
the resource group is now a child under the subscription. And if you want to see this resource group, you firstly, as a user, have to be a part of the tenant, have to read the subscription, and then only come into the resource group level as such. So if you directly add a user here, Azure will take care of the rest too. You don't really have to add them there and then do something at the subscription. No, as I did, I added user 2 directly at, let's say, this particular resource group level, and the above two were taken care. I do not have to really do anything out there.
So basically, in this way, we can do. We can have a tenant, right?
Hmm.
Then we can have a subscription,
Okay.
right? And directly we can create a resource group one, resource group two,
Hmm.
right? And then under that we can add, we can create a user one and user two, and by going to the resource group, we can assign role to user on one or user two directly,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
Okay, so we no need to first, after subscription, we no need to add users and then go to the subscription, assign them role for the subscription, and then
Hmm.
create a this resource group, and then again go and make changes. That is not
Correct.
necessary, right?
You don't have to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else, guys? Anyone? Any other
Uh,
questions here? Mhm.
so let's say a user can have can assign a role both in subscription as well as resource groups.
Both the subscription as well as resource group. Good question. Can
Yeah.
the user have a role both at the subscription and the resource group? Answer is yes. But what if he will have such a kind of a role? That's what I'm getting into. We'll look at that. Let's say conflicting roles. The question here is that can the same user called user one, can he be a part or can he have a role at a subscription and also a role at the resource group? Can you add him like that? Can we do that? Yes, we can do that. But my question, let's see this, okay? Let's understand my question out here. What I now do is I am going ahead and I will re-add this user one at a subscription level as a reader. And what role does the reader have? Cannot do any changes, nothing. Just read the, let's say, resources. That's it. That's the only thing he particularly has out here. But the same user has a contributor role here. Same user now has a contributor role. My question right now to everyone is that if I add this user as a reader, will it override this permission or what will exactly happen right now? Then what is going to be the effect?
So,
Mhm.
so reader and
Exactly.
contributor
Good
are the
point.
two.
Uh, just a second. Sorry. I'll just come back to you. Sorry. Good point. He can see the other resource group as well. When you say he can see the other resource group, What permission do you think he will have here in the resource group? Reader, then what permission will he have here?
You
Meaning
can just see
contributor?
the content.
Yes. Let's look at that. Yes, sorry. Yes, online someone had some thoughts. Please go ahead.
So if a user has assigned as a reader in the subscription, he can
Hmm.
access to the content of all the resource group, but he can't
Okay.
modify the content there, I think.
Okay, can't modify content
So
directly,
if
which means that he
yeah,
will be a reader at
in the
2.
okay.
Please go ahead, please.
That's what, sir. If a user has been assigned as a reader in the subscription, he can have
Okay.
an access and he can read the content of the resource group, but he can't modify the content in the resource group.
Okay, when you say he can't
So I
modify
think
the content, correct. But when you say he can't modify the content in the resource group, which resource group are you pointing out to? Is it resource group 1 or is it resource group 2?
yeah, because here we have I mean U1 in the sense he can only have access to U1, I think, or
Okay.
maybe
Hmm.
being part of the subscription he may have access and he can read the content of all the resource group,
Can read the content of all the resource group, yes. But
but
my
he can't
question was
modify the
specifically,
content.
yeah, but my question was specifically, then what about resource group 1? Here, this user is already a contributor. He's already
Yeah,
having a
he's a
role here. Mhm. So there is a conflict between these two things out here. So let's see that. Let's go there practically and see what will really happen, and then take questions. So let's go here. So I'm going as the administrator account again. I am coming here into the subscription, and in the subscription, I am re-adding this user as a reader. Let's go to the reader role. I'll say select members. I will say user 1. Next, review and assign this out here. What now it is doing is that now this user 1 is now being added as a reader on Visual Studio Enterprise subscription. It's such a subscription level, but the user already has a role called contributor at this level. If I say user 1 has a contributor role, and do you see what is happening right now? It's being inherited. So he has two roles. User 1 has a contributor as well as what? A reader role out here. Let's go to resource group 2. I'll go to identity and access management, and in here I'll say role assignments. In here I'll again search for user 1. What do you think will be the role of the user 1 here? Reader? No contributor? Because here this particular user, the roles is coming from what? The subscription level. I did not add him directly out here, which means that if I go back as a user, refresh the screen, I am now able to see the resource group 2, but I cannot do any editing inside this resource group. Like I'll able to see the tags and all that stuff, but the save button is grayed out. I cannot do any editing. I cannot do any all that stuff here. I can just see what is there. That's it. I have a limited access, but in this particular resource group, which is the developer resource group out here, I have now a contributor access. Reason being, I have been added as a contributor out here, and the role assignments in Azure. Let's say user 1. The role assignments in Azure, when you have a conflicting role, because you are a contributor, you're also a reader out here. The role assignment in Azure always acts in an additive mode. When I say additive mode, what it does is that it will check what are all the roles that you have per a specific resource. For example, here user 1 at a resource group level 1 is both a contributor and a reader. Reader is coming from the, or reader is being inherited from the subscription level. Contributor is being assigned at that particular level only. Now, what will Azure do is that it will add both of them. You'll say, okay, fine, you're a contributor, you're a reader. I'll add both of it and I'll see what is the result of both of them. Now, if you're a contributor, by default, you are a reader. Firstly, you will be a reader. You'll have to read and then you can modify. So you'll have a read and write both. So I'll tell, okay, fine. As the contributor is already a reader, contributor plus reader becomes a contributor out here. Reason being, reader permission will give you a read access. Contributor is on top of reader, which has read inside it already. But apart from that, you will also get a write, delete, and all these things out here. So this user will become a contributor in effect, a contributor in effect, because these two roles, if you add, it will just result in something like contribution out here. Again, if you just go to the documentation as well, let's go there. Let's see how you can read this particular documentation. Let's see Azure RBAC conflict. So what is role-based access control? Azure RBAC. Again, I'll rely back on docs.microsoft.com, wherein they're telling what is RBAC. Firstly, let's see. Access management for the cloud resources is a critical function for any organization. Azure RBAC, role-based access, helps you manage who has access to what resource, what they can do with the resources out here. Then you have in this article telling multiple role assignments, meaning if you have multiple role assignments, in our case, what will really happen? So what happens if you have a multiple role assignment, overlapping roles? See, Azure, that's what they're telling. Azure is an additive model. So your effective permissions are a sum of the assignments. Consider the following example where a user is granted a contributor role at the subscription scope and the reader role on the resource group. The sum of contributor and the reader is effectively what? A contributor for the subscription. Therefore, in this case, reader assignment has no impact at all as such. So this is what they're telling. Using this particular, let's say, example, they're telling if a user has both the roles, what kind of an assignment does he have out here, and etc. Let me turn the scenario slightly a little bit. Let's say that I add the user one initially as a reader on just the resource group one out here, which means he won't be able to see this. He will only be able to see the resource group one with a limited access. Now what I do in the second thing, I again take the same user one, add him as a contributor here. This time around, what will happen? How is it different from the scenario one? How do you think it's different from the scenario one? Let's see this. In scenario one, I have added the user as contributor at the resource group level and reader at the subscription level. So what was happening? The user was able to read both the resource group called resource group 1 and resource group 2. But on the resource group 1, he also has a contributor role out here because you added a contributor for that particular resource group. Now I'm telling in scenario 2, let's say that you same added the user 1, but the role assignment was slightly different. User 1 is a reader at the RG level 1 and a contributor at the subscription level. What do you think will happen right now? Sorry, he will? Mhm. Correct. Mhm. Okay, he will be having access. But when you say having access at the resource group level, what kind of an access will he have? He will have a read, write, execute, and etc. Will he have a read, write, execute on the resource group one as well, where he's been added? Yes, exactly. He will be having the same thing. Not only that, he'll also become a contributor for resource group 2 because he's added as a contributor at a parent level. So all the child resources like resource groups and etc., they will inherit that particular permission called as a contributor out there. So this is how the roles can be assigned. And whenever you want to see a role of a particular person, just go into the subscription or at the resource group level, anywhere it's okay. Go into identity and access, let's say management, IAM or access control, and say role assignments. And see, for example, I'll say user 2. Here it's saying there is no role assignment for user 2 out here because we haven't done anything with the user 2 as such. But if you go at the individual resource group level and search for someone known as user 2, then he has a role assignment out here. This is one way of doing it. Or come into your Azure Active Directory and search for user 2. You have someone called user 2 out here. Click on this one. Just scroll down. You have what? Azure role assignments out here. If you click here, this will also tell you what are all the roles in all the subscription this particular user has. Selling contributor to this particular resource group called what? Test-resource-group. This is one way of checking what the users kind of have or what kind of, let's say, access a particular user has and where does he has the access out here. And depending upon that, you will be able to judge what level of access a user has. The reason that we are stressing on this is because tomorrow when you are working as a DevOps engineer or an administrator in an organization, a developer might come back to you and say, hey, you know what, I need to work on a resource, but there is some error that I'm getting. I'm not able to, let's say, go ahead and do some kind of a read or some kind of a write. Can you check what kind of an access that I have? Then you come back here and check here telling that, okay, fine, this is the access that you have. Then he might tell you that, you know what, I want to be added, let's say, as a contributor and etc. Usually, when you are a DevOps engineer, you will not have access to do all these things. This is an administrator role. This is a pure administrator role out here. Usually, when a company is big, they will have separation between teams. Like a DevOps does a DevOps work, like CI/CD pipelines and all these things is something that we need to have access on. Administrators normally go ahead and, let's say, perform all these tasks by using multiple tools and so on and so forth. So what would you normally say is that, you know what, I'll contact that particular team, give them a ticket, have a word with them, send an email across to them, and if you have the right approval from the administrator, you will be added to that particular resource group and so on and so forth. So this is how normally the workflow goes ahead inside an organization as such out there. Yes, any questions still here?
Sir, let me summarize it. Suppose if a user is assigned as a contributor to the subscription level, so
Okay,
he has an access to both read and write at the resource group level. Suppose if
correct,
a reader is assigned as a reader at the subscription level, he only
hmm
can read the resource group, but he can't modify it. I mean, he don't have
correct,
access to read and write.
correct,
Is it correct, sir?
correct, that's
Okay,
correct.
okay. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Is it necessary to give access both at the subscription and the resource group level? I think we have, yeah, taken this. Is it necessary? This depends upon the scenario that you're really working with right now. Let's say you have a development team who is now telling that, you know what, I need access, I need a read access to all the resource groups in the subscription to understand what are the resource groups out here. But let's say we need access only to specific, let's say, resource group, which is RG1 and RG2 as a contributor. Then yes, I will firstly add that user as a reader on the subscription so that he'll be able to read everything. And then later go ahead and, let's say, come to resource group 1, resource group 2 and give that particular contributor access out there. This is how, or this is why we need to add users at both the levels. Depends upon what they need. It depends upon what exactly that you're trying to achieve. Yes, any more questions still here? Anyone, any more questions still here? Good till here.
Suresh, hello.
Good, please.
Yeah, so in the resource level, the
Mm-hmm.
user one, if I'm giving a contributor access, so
Okay.
individually we have to go and give for all the this one resource level.
So good question is that do we do individually? It'll become very tough to do individually because over a period of time, the amount of resource groups that you're looking at not just one or two, there'll be like 100 or 200 resource groups that a user might need permissions on. That's the reason you have automation like PowerShell or Bash that is coming into play, wherein automation, let's say, plays a huge role. You can write a script. That script will go ahead, take that particular object ID of the user, add him to whichever level he wants. So you can automate this particular thing as such out there.
Second one is that is it necessary to give contributor role only to like if we are doing to user one, suppose for user one I give contributor to the resource level one, so it will
Okay.
auto apply to all, or only the client will ask to
When
know
you
for one
okay,
resource level
when
you have to
you
give only the contributor and second one you can give as a reader, or not required.
when you say resource level one, what do you indicate? Do you indicate is it the subscription or are you indicating is it the resource group?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Uh, my question is that at the suppose I am a user, I need
Hmm.
only access to resource level one as a contributor.
Correct. So my
So is
question,
that
counter
clients?
question, just a second. Counter question here is that when you say
Mhm,
resource level one, what do you
mhm.
indicate? Are you indicating subscription
No,
or
without
are you
subscription I'm talking.
okay, without subscription you're talking. So you mean that you want to add the user directly here at the resource group level as a contributor.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the resource level one. So when you say resource level one, be a little specific so that I can catch this. So you want to add the resource or you want to add the user at the resource group as a contributor. All right.
Yes.
Yes, please go ahead now.
But resource level one, only one, not to two. That as a user, I don't want access to resource level two.
Okay.
Is it automatically I'll be also, once I'm added to this resource level one as a contributor, I'll be
Mhm.
having access to the other resource level also?
You should tell me that. Will you? Would you?
Okay, that is what's my question. Like client
Mhm.
will give me the, client will ask me to give access or not. It is dependable. Like,
Again, the counter question here is that there are two resource groups, RG1 and RG2. You have
okay,
just added the user one as per,
mhm.
let's say, the requirement of your project. Add the resource group one. Now, my question to
Okay.
you is that will he have any access at the resource group two? Counter
Yes, he'll
question
be
out.
having.
He'll be having. How will he be having? Or why will
You're
he be
giving it
having?
contributor. No, 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 no. If he is having contributor subscription, then
No,
he'll be having. Otherwise, he'll be
exactly.
having only at the RG1 level,
Only at the
not at the RG
RG1
level
level
2.
as such. Exactly. Now, to answer to your point, would you add him? Depends upon the requirement. Do you need that particular user to have access to all? Then please go ahead add him here. If not,
At the subscription
add him
level.
at exactly at the subscription level.
Okay, okay, got it. Like if somebody wants to RG level all the all the access, then we have to add at the subscription level. If not, if he needs individually, then
Yes,
individually
at
RG level we
at
can
the
add.
resource
And
group level as well. Correct.
yeah, I got. Thank you.
Okay. Yes. Any more questions, guys? Okay, let's
Yeah,
see.
hello.
One question.
I got one question.
Good, please.
Yeah, if a user is added at subscription level,
Okay.
he got a role of contributor. So can I
Okay.
restrict one particular resource group,
Can
uh,
you restrict one
only
particular
read
resource
access?
group? Good question. Can I add a good question? Good question out here is that if I basically go ahead and add a user as a contributor out here, and I just want the user to be a reader here. I don't want him to be a contributor basically at this particular. Can I restrict that one? No. The answer is no because as and when you do a contributor, any lesser role than contributor will not come into impact at all, will not come into effect at all. So the other way is not really possible out here. So that's the reason we start adding a user depending upon, let's say, the access he needs as a reader first, and then the least role first, and then override it with, let's say, a higher role as such out there. Okay, let's see. One more question out here is that how to perform bulk operations to add multiple users into a resource group. Uh, how to perform bulk operations, let's say, at the resource group level. At a resource group level, you do not really get the option to do a bulk operation out here. So if I go into identity and access management, there isn't an option to do a bulk create or a bulk assignment and all that stuff. You cannot do that. You cannot really, let's say, have that one out here. Rather, what you can do is, that's the reason we have something called groups. We have something known as groups out here. What we can do is that when you add users, when you are adding users into your Azure Active Directory, instead of saying new user or something, do a bulk operation. When you're doing a bulk operation in the CSV file that you get, when you do the bulk operation out here, it will ask you which group that you want to go ahead and add this particular user. You can say, is it group 1, group 2, and so on and so forth. And when you are giving the assignment, now I don't give an individual user the assignment. I give the entire group the assignment out here. So I can say add role assignment. And if you look at this, there is like owner, contributor, and all that stuff. I'll say contributor. Let's go next. It says users group or service principal. I'll talk about what service principal is. So you can either add a user or you can add a group. So you can say group out here. I think that's demo group or something like that. It's demo group 1, demo group 2, and something like that. You can take that particular group and then give the assignment to that particular group out here. So all the users who are a part of that particular group will automatically be, let's say, getting that roles out here because you have added the entire group as such. So this is one of the ways to do bulk operation. The other ways to achieve it is to, let's say, go ahead write your own script. If you, let's say, need specific users out here, you can go ahead get all those users out there and write your own script as such out there as such. So multiple ways in order to go ahead and do this. Yes, any more questions here? Anyone, any more questions here? Let's see if there's anything in the chat. Okay. Any questions still here, guys? Anyone, any questions still here? All right. So till here, where the basics of Azure that we wanted to just cover out. So we started at Tuesday, and today is, let's say, again Tuesday out here. So 1 week. So we want to do the very basics of it. And from tomorrow, we will start with the core of Azure services. We'll start, let's say, interacting with the core of Azure services, and we will start with a service called storage account in Azure. To understand what do you mean by storage account, what is the service really about, what can you get with the service, and so on and so forth. So this is what we are going to start with from tomorrow's session out here. So please be on time from tomorrow, guys. These will be the very core services of Azure that you as a DevOps engineer will start doing. So I will need the entire week to cover storages, and once we do storages, we again do the same thing using automation. We see what is resource group using automation, we see what is storage using automation, etc. And automation includes 2 weeks of automation out here to begin with. It will initially start with PowerShell, the basics of PowerShell. If we'll start with the scratch of it, then move into something called as ARM templates out here. These are the things that we'll be covering in the coming week as such. All right, any questions in that direction? Anyone, anything in there?
So all these are in admin, right? Administration.
I'm sorry.
So now you're teaching. All these are in administration, right?
Now it's only administration. The first 35-40 hours is only going to be administration. Administration is, let's say, an ocean out there. So first 35-40 hours is only going to be our practice or our, let's say, attempt to understand administration from a DevOps engineer's perspective. So that's what we are going to try and do. And after that particular 40, meaning about 1 month from now, after that we'll go into DevOps. No, we don't. We are not using a tool. We
Hi
are using
Suresh,
the
I
cloud
have
technology itself. Just a second. Just a second. I'll come back to you, Deepak. We are not using a tool. We are using the cloud directly. Cloud is the technology that we are using. When you come to tools, then automation tools like PowerShell ARM is something that we will be using. Mhm. Okay, when you go to DevOps, then yes, we come with code control, GitHub, Git, Azure repositories, technology of Git, what is Git and all that stuff, and then move into CI/CD pipelines next. Yes, Deepak, you had a question. Please go ahead.
yes, this is from the starting classes as I was not attended
Mhm.
first and second.
Okay. Okay.
So when we go to the Active Directory,
Okay.
okay, can you please go to that page so it will be easy
Okay.
for me to navigate
Okay.
it. Active Directory, then we are going to the overview. Can you please click on the overview?
Yeah, I am on the overview.
Yeah, it's already in the overview. Then
Mhm.
can you please scroll down once?
Okay.
Here, some more, please. Some more you have to scroll down.
Okay.
That is not reflecting in you, I think. No, it's reflecting. Azure classes is reflecting. For me, it was
Okay.
reflecting as a Deepak Sharma. Then when I clicked on the Deepak Sharma, there was something called the assigned role.
Mm-hmm.
Can you please view role information?
Okay, I'll do view profile, assign roles.
Yeah,
Okay.
assigned role. From
Mm-hmm.
here, which kind of role we are assigning?
So here, the assignments out here are purely Active Directory assignments. Until now, we've been reading about role assignments at the subscription level, at the resource group level, but I did not even come to Active Directory assignment out there. There is
Okay.
something
So
called
that is the
Active
next
Directory
topic, right?
assignments. That's not the next topic. That will be, let's say, covered when the DevOps classes would start, because this is something that we do not need at this point. So we'll park it out and we'll take it when the DevOps
Okay.
starts out there. Active Directory assignments, just to give you a very overview, will help you do some kind of a changes on the Active Directory itself. I'm able to add users in the Active Directory because I have a global assignment out here
Mhm.
on the directory level itself. So there is a directory
Mhm.
assignment, there is a subscription assignment, then your resource comes in next.
So this is the coming topic. Second question I have that under my free trial subscription, my role is showing as a account admin,
Okay.
but under you it's showing as a owner.
Because I have been added as the owner. I am not someone who created this out. I am not someone who
Okay.
created the subscription. If I am someone who created a subscription, let's say I have multiple tenants with me.
Mhm.
Let's say this is my own tenant, which I created. I was not assigned this out. And if I go into my subscriptions out here, my role here will be an account administrator, like the way you are able to see it. It's an
Okay. So
account admin.
whenever we are adding,
Mhm.
if somebody is assigning, he can choose the role, right?
Correct.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, guys? Let me switch this back. Anyone? Anything else? All right. Thank you and have a good day ahead. And we'll meet tomorrow and we'll start with, let's say, the core services of Azure. Thanks, guys.